everybody, welcome to Module 3 for Psych and the Legal System. I just wanted to say first that you all did really well on the quizzes. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but thanks for hanging in there and great job on those. And I also just wanted to remind everybody to get their paper topics in if they haven't done so yet. With regard to the online discussion for Module 2, I just wanted to make a couple comments before we start talking about the material from this week. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is that there is an assumption in some of people's discussions that police do get a lot of training on a lot of different topics, and I think that's true for some things. I really wish Bruce was actually here for this discussion. It would be interesting to hear his take on it. But I know that on some topics they actually don't get very much training. So, for example, dealing with the mentally ill, police often don't have any training about how to do that. So I think it's just important to be careful not to assume that they get a lot more training than they do on some issues. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is I know you're all really interested in profiling, so it seemed like you enjoyed that question. I'm glad. But I did want to make a couple comments. The first is that there really isn't an evidence base for profiling, and a lot of that is because the procedures aren't really published. It's something that's primarily practiced by the FBI, and they don't want to put their methods out there for the obvious reasons that it might make it easier for some people to evade detection, or for profiling to be less useful in some ways. However, there are a lot of people out there that, for the reason that it's not an evidence-based practice, are less likely to take it seriously. And I just want to caution those of you who are planning to go on to further graduate education about talking about that in your interviews, and especially as it relates to TV, because with some people it could cause you to lose some credibility. So just be careful about that. For me, I do fall on the lack of an evidence-based side, and I know a lot of people would disagree with me, and that's fine. It's one of those debates in the field. But for me, it's kind of like the volitional prong in criminal responsibility. I don't think that in a lot of cases we have much to offer there, and so I don't think that we should necessarily be opining on those issues. So when we talk about criminal responsibility, we can talk about my opinion on that a little bit more. And again, there are people that disagree with me there as well. I also just wanted to caution people about the discussion of the Rorschach. I think it's really interesting that you guys raised that. Again, this is something that that's contested in the field, about, especially within forensics, about whether it should be used or not. And I know it's likely that you'll be taught about it in this program, but in some programs, like for example my program, the Rorschach was actually not emphasized. In fact, it was not taught that much. It was really an internship that I learned about it, and that's because its use in court is not that frequent. If I were the cross-examining attorney and I saw that you used the Rorschach in your evaluation, I would be really excited, because it would give me a lot of material for cross-exam. So just be careful about that. I think the Rorschach has its place in use in treatment, but for court testimony, whether you're using the extra system or not, I think it can be dangerous to introduce that into testimony. So, but in the end, it's your decision when you're out there practicing on your own. That's just my 2 cents on that issue. This week's material, we're going to talk about victims and victim services, and we'll start with a discussion of some of the legal rights of victims. And in my lecture, I'll talk about how I think that some of those rights actually aren't upheld in some ways. We'll also talk about how some people are victimized by strangers and what types of psychological reactions you're likely to see in them, as compared to those who are victims within their own family, which can be, you'll see very different reactions from that group, and they may need different types of services. So I hope you enjoy the materials for this week, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all next week. Thanks.